back on the Good Morning Artesia radio show, and we've got County Commission Day today, and Jerry Fanning, who is the
Public and Government Affairs.
There we go. Public and Government Affairs Advisor to the County Commission, and Stephen McCutcheon, who is actually one of our county commissioners, who's with us today. And we were off air. We were just talking about all the interesting things going on with the schools and the masks and the stuff like that. It's going to be real interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks with all of that. We're in a part of the state where there's been a lot of pushback and opposition to the mandates as far as the masks, and we have a lot of school board folks and school officials that are like, we have a cautious line we have to walk in dealing with the people that control our money. And so it's a challenge for administrators, it's a challenge for teachers, it's a challenge for parents, as you are.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the kids are kind of caught up in the middle of all of this. So,
Yeah, I've got two kids sitting in the principal's office right now for quote-unquote mask violations. So they're meeting the requirements for the double layer cloth mask, but apparently the thread count on these masks is too loose, something. So they've got an 8 and 9 year old down there in the principal's office being picked up by their mother right now because and we've asked for clarification on that. I said, look, obviously there's got to be some sort of effectiveness. Is it a 900 thread count or a 600 thread count or a 25 thread count? Well, no one wants to answer that question. It's just on a case by case basis. So there's just too much left up to interpretation here. So we'll just they discussed it quite a bit last night at a special school board meeting. There was over 100 people in support there. And, the biggest thing is we just want our kids to be educated and taking elementary age children and force them to wear masks and do things like that. We can talk about the governor's mandate all we want, and we know that she has the right and ability and the power given to her in 2002 by the legislature to do that, and that's a mistake that we are paying for 20 years later. So we're not naive to the rules. We're not naive to the power that she takes, but there's also good judgment involved. So
yeah,
anyway.
No, it does seem to be a challenge for folks trying to figure out what is right. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on the internet you can watch and read and look at. I'm watching a guy who claims he's a doctor, and it's on the internet, so you don't know, but he claims he's a doctor, and he's putting on 5 of the cheap paper masks that you buy and still fogging his glasses.
Yeah.
Okay, so that mask is going to work to keep me from getting COVID.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. So I guess we have to have we have hall monitors, now we have mask monitors.
Oh, that's right.
And, are they going to have little blue light flashlight things that will scan for thread count? And
yeah, well, I think they should. I think they should. And quite frankly, they're not following the mask mandate to a T, because we pulled it out and read it and gone over it with a fine-tooth comb. What it says is before you touch your mask, and this is part of the rule. This is just like wearing a mask every day. Part of that rule is before you touch it, you either have to wash or hand sanitize your hands before you touch your mask. Mm-hmm. So before you take it off to eat, and then before you put it back on, you have to re-hand sanitize. Well, they're not doing that either. Right. So, if we're going to follow the rules, let's follow all of them. So why don't we go ahead and force the school district to do that? So if we're going to follow all these rules, well, it's easy to say, you're not wearing a mask, or that mask doesn't quite look right. Well, look, if you've written the rules, let's follow the rules like they're supposed to be followed. It would be impossible. That's why that's not happening.
Right.
And so, but it's easy to pick on a couple of 8 and 9 year olds, 3rd and 4th graders, and easy to pick on them, make them examples when that's their choice. They've chosen to wear it. I guess we'll just pick them up from school. We'll just keep sending them and keep picking them up. So I'm not gonna, that they have to be able to make their own choice in the world. So
yeah, it is an interesting situation that everybody's being put into, and we had our superintendent on the radio just last hour talking about the surveillance testing, which went from 5% of the unvaccinated staff in the summer to 25% now, to starting next week, 100% of unvaccinated school system employees have to be tested every single week. I was talking to a parent of a kid who's going to be in the state fair. You have to show proof of vaccination to get into the state fair this year. And it's just one of those things that you were scratching your head and you go, what country are we in? Because in all of this, nobody is saying you should not wear a mask. Nobody's saying that.
No.
They're saying if you feel more comfortable, if you feel safer, if you feel that that's best to protect you and your family from all of this stuff that's going around, then put your mask on. But anyway, we're getting into some of the other topics. Let's talk a little bit about the border. That's another
with
Biden's America deal.
And the border situation is a county situation.
It is a county situation. How much of Eddy County borders? I thought we were all on Texas. Are we all on border Texas, New Mexico?
No, we don't border
Eddy
Mexico.
County.
No, we don't border Mexico at all. But our sheriff reported to us in the last, in 2 weeks ago, county commission meeting that for several weeks now, Eddy County has beat Bernalillo in the apprehension of fentanyl. So we are seizing now more fentanyl than Bernalillo County. So can you imagine that? I mean, we've got the population of Albuquerque and we've got the population of Eddy County. And in comparison, we are seizing more fentanyl off the streets. Well, what's happening is 62-180 that comes up from El Paso, goes through Carlsbad and out Hobbs. Well, that's a back road to drug smugglers. They don't want to go on I-10. They don't take I-25, and most of the illegals head up to the northeast. So it's a huge thoroughfare, and it's a good back road. There's not all the technology that they have on the freeways. There's not vehicle monitors, not things like that. So there's stops. There's distribution points, and I think that Eddy County citizens would just be appalled at the amount of drugs that are coming through Eddy County, at the amount of human trafficking, the amount of prostitution, and it's all orchestrated at the border, and it's all orchestrated by the cartels. This is the same origins that we got with the mafia in about 1930. And so what happened with the mafia in 1930? Well, I guess we can go to 1928. So about 1928, over in Sicily, there's a town called Palermo, Sicily, and there was a mafia presence there. So the mafia presence is there. Then, anyways, Mussolini comes in and wants to stomp that out. So he does, essentially, and then 4 or 5 years after that, everybody flees to. Well, they start fleeing immediately to the United States, but you had all these mob bosses and mafiosos that fled Sicily and came to the United States. Well, they landed in New York, and man, it was a perfect place for them. And then Prohibition hit, and we really grew the mob exponentially. I mean, that's why we have Las Vegas, right? So, anyways, but to back up, we said, okay, 1924, these guys start coming over. Well, they came over in 1925, 26, and they came over under asylum. They said, hey, we're fleeing fascism, right? So they come over under asylum. They're fleeing Mussolini's, fascist control. Okay, fascist control. So they come over, and they land, and because they were fleeing for asylum, they did not have to be documented. They did not have to have any background checks. All of their criminal records were left back in their old country, and they were just released into the population. At that time, we could take 150,000 per year, but they were outside of that. So let's fast forward now to 2021. What has happened here? So 2 weeks ago, if you were on the border and you came over, let's say I'm Gene Reese and I'm gonna walk over. Well, first of all, I don't get across the border unless I pay the cartel. This rhetoric of, hey, I'm a good person. I'm gonna put my backpack on and put my best hiking boots on. I'm gonna walk over there and I'm gonna be an honest citizen and working nice. That doesn't exist anymore, because if Gene Reese is in Mexico and he tries to walk over the border without permission, he gets killed, or his family gets killed, and you can't cross that border without paying your $2,500 to $3,500 ticket. Okay, mm-hmm. And that goes straight to the cartels. So you come over and you've paid your fee to cross the border, and the cartel, they completely control you. Let me go back. I'm kind of bouncing around here, but so when we went down to the border, I'll circle back to where we're at. But when we went down to the border, went down with Yvette Harrell. It was a great. It was probably one of the highlights of my year. So we go down and we visit with 4 Border Patrol agents, and there were some people from Farm Bureau, and we had the ranchers down there. The Border Patrol agents today are apprehending between 700 and a slow day. This is in the El Paso sector, so this is from Fort Hancock to Lordsburg. The El Paso sector, they're apprehending between 700 and 1,200 illegal immigrants a day. So
that's the ones they're getting.
That's the ones they're catching. So how many are actually coming across? Twice that many, 3 times that many? I don't know the number. Who knows the number? Yeah. But that's how many that they're catching. So 700 on a slow day. They're apprehending 1,200 on a busy day. On top of that, either from McAllen or from Tucson sectors, they are flying in 400. There'll be 3 plane loads of 135 a day.
Who's doing the flying in?
The Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol.
So they're overrunning Tucson and they're overrunning McAllen, and they say, okay, let's send 2 plane loads to El Paso. Let's send, and the other one will say, hey, we'll send a plane load to El Paso. That's for processing. That's for checking in. They say, we can't handle the influx, and you guys have more manpower. Well, in the Deming office, there's about 260 or so Border Patrol agents, and figure they're only working. So, anyways, probably have about 80 working. A pretty decent sector. There's probably over 1,000, I would imagine, in the El Paso sector. But it's orchestrated 100% by the cartels, so you've got to pay to get across. But also at the same time, we have the Biden administration, and this is where I'll circle back. We have the Biden administration 2 weeks ago. So if you're an illegal and you come across, you get caught, and they say, okay, we need to release you to somebody, because under Title 42 of President Trump, you were able to reject all of them and say, okay, you have to wait in Mexico for asylum. Once you're in Mexico, you wait for a while, then you can apply for asylum, and then you can maybe come. So the cartel has flooded the border with makeshift families. They've kidnapped children. They've got human trafficking. They're making up families. They're sending them. They are sending regular families that are paying their way. They say, hey, we're going to we'll get you across the border. So everybody pay their $2,500. 2 weeks ago, if you showed up to the border and they said, okay, we're going to go ahead and release you. We don't have to reject everybody under Title 42. So they said, we're going to release you. Who do you go to? Well, I have a cousin in, let's say, Milwaukee. All right. Well, my cousin in Milwaukee, they were 2 weeks ago calling that guy. They're calling your cousin Joe, whatever his name is, and they say, okay, Joe, we need your fingerprints and we need your background check. And they would run an extensive background check before they released you into the United States. Well, the Biden administration just ixnayed that rule 2 weeks ago. So now you show to the border and they say, okay, you're not being rejected under Title 42, which they're only rejecting about 13% of the people showing up at the border.
Right.
And then they're releasing everybody else into the population. Well, 2 weeks ago, they just said, tell us the name of your dang cousin and we will just send you to him. Okay, they go, well, I got a cousin in Salt Lake City. Okay, well, what's his name? Well, his name's John Smith. All right. Put you on an airplane, and they just ship you there. So you go to El Paso.
Who's paying for the plane tickets?
Oh no, that's the federal government. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's you and I. We're paying for the plane tickets. So Yvette Harrell got on a plane the other day. She said there were 14 illegals on the plane. They just had name tags and a little suitcase. All they had, and they don't have a COVID shot. They're not forcing them to get COVID shots when they come in. And
no, wait. Your wife is picking up your kids.
You bet.
From the school they're in Carlsbad, because they weren't wearing a proper mask. But Yvette Harrell was on a plane with 14 illegals, and we're not making them wear masks, and we're not
making it. Well, I'm sure they were probably wearing masks. But regardless, they were not.
What kind of mask?
Yeah.
But we're not requiring them to be vaccinated before they come into the country.
Absolutely not.
And we're not making them stay in Mexico for 3 weeks so they get the second shot, and then 2 weeks after that before they're fully vaccinated, and then we let them come into the country?
Absolutely not.
I'm answering this sarcastically because I know that. Now, you were down there. You were talking to some of these Border Patrol people. You're sharing this story with us. Mm-hmm. You're not the only one with this knowledge. Yvette Harrell is not the only one with this knowledge. Who is aware of this, and why is nothing being done about this?
I think anybody can be aware of this if they just look a little bit in the right places. But we have no major media outlets that are covering it because it's a debacle on the Biden administration. Let's just think about this for a minute. So we see the history in the mob and them coming over. We see now that we're bringing people in and just turning them loose to undocumented people. We don't know if these people have criminal records or anything. So we're essentially setting up the cartel in the United States on the northern side of the border, right? We know they've been here for a long time, but they're getting a much stronger foothold now. So when we think about that, we think about what's happening, and then let's go back and look at these Cubans that were trying to float over here 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Okay, we got 6 Cubans that jump on a raft. They build the raft. It's leaky. They starve to death. They're just praying that the tide or that the currents of the ocean are going to float them to Florida. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got a leaky boat. It's shark-infested waters. Heck, they had to risk a regime when they were leaving anyway, so they were just lucky enough to get it. And what do we do a half mile off the coast of Florida? We pick them up in the Coast Guard and send them back.
Yeah.
And why? Why would we do that? Why do we allow the southern border to be like it is and be flooded and only let them use about 13% of Title 42, depends on the week, but they're only using about 13% of Title 42 to reject people. Why do we then let the Cubans come over? Why would we do that?
Well, and there's talk about, well, we got to get the Afghanis out. Meanwhile, we've got how many thousands of Americans, U.S. citizens, that are still stuck in different parts of Afghanistan because this collapse went so quickly, even though the president told us they had planned for all the contingencies. I don't know what that means when you see what happened.
And not to interject or steal Stephen's thunder, Gene, but one of the concerns that I see here that I guess I fail to understand is why are the citizens of New Mexico being so acceptant to these types of things that are endangering our citizens?
Right.
I mean, we see the influx of and I know it is, the influx of homicides in Albuquerque and what the governor's done there with the state police. And 90% of those homicides have been drug problems. They're tied to drugs, illegal drugs, and this is what's happening. But yet we're concentrating on Albuquerque and putting state police there, when I know that Congresswoman Harrell has made, I think, at least 3 or 4 requests to the governor
to get the
National Guard on the borders, which we stop the problem instead of trying to just protect those citizens in Albuquerque in that area. Why are we not protecting our citizens at the source?
Well, I'm sure
and she ignores that. She's been ignoring those requests, but yet she sends. And go back to that. This morning I heard that she's also made a request for 1,000 new police officers in New Mexico.
Yeah.
The state police are down officers also, and she's putting them in Albuquerque fighting what I would consider, former law enforcement, a losing battle because of the fact we're not stopping it at the source. And a lot of that source is there at the border.
And we're not holding anybody accountable once we do get them into the system.
Correct.
So they're arrested, they're tried, they're convicted. Well, then what?
Right.
So another thing that's really interesting, since we're talking about the support on the border, we've got Border Patrol agents, and they say on their shift they're covering anywhere from 15 to 20 miles of border. So we've got a couple of Border Patrol agents running down in an all-terrain vehicle, or in a vehicle at least with all-terrain tires, something like that. And they have a little bit of communication. So the Luna County Sheriff's Department and the city of Deming, they send officers down, and the state, I will give the state that they send a state police officer down there every now and then to patrol. They say, well, we'll go down there and patrol the border. So they're sending one state police officer by herself, in a vehicle that has highway tires on it, which, by the way, when you get 1 mile west of Columbus, you completely lose all cell phone coverage. There is no cell phone coverage. So you're sending one single officer to drive up and down this border fence with no cell phone coverage and with no communication to anybody else. He's not linked up to the Border Patrol. They don't link up like that. We just spent a ton of money in the county trying to link up fire services and the other emergency services so we could tone out efficiently and get more
resources.
Yeah, get more agencies to respond and so we were trying to
communicate with
we're trying to standardize the communication. There is none of that. So that's what they're doing. So they're just endangering the life of the Deming police officer or of the state police officer that they send down to drive up and down the border by himself.
Yeah. It's really frustrating. And then the other thing, too, is if we've got the 35 state police officers up in Albuquerque helping the PD up there, who's going to be enforcing the mask mandates down here? Who's going to be going into the homeschoolers and making sure that they're wearing masks? You guys have time to stick around for a little bit? Can you?
I'd like to talk more about the border. I got some more information.
Okay, very good. We need to break for news right here. Jerry, can you do the same? All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back. Stephen McCutcheon, Jerry Fanning. We're talking about border issues and how they're impacting Eddy County. We'll be back on the other side of the news.